And our second main topic today gets submitted to us by Harry Henderson. Harry and the Hendersons writes in, "Hey, John. So I know you don't care about the Golden Globes. That's an understatement. At all. Neither do I. But I was wondering what you thought about the controversy regarding no female directors being nominated this year. Some news sites are making a big deal out of this. Do you think it's an issue or not? Thank you, and bring on the filthy." All right. Thanks a lot for sending that in, Harry. And listen, before I get into this, let me give this disclaimer right up top. By the end of my little spiel here, y'all are going to hate me. Everyone's going to hate me. Everyone. All of them. The knuckle-dragging, cousin-humping, basement-dwelling losers who thinks that women's only place is in a kitchen making them a sandwich and the only time they should be on screen is showing their titties and being rescued by the big man. They're going to hate me when I'm done this. The more progressive people are going to hate me when I'm done this. So I'm just letting you know right now, if you're thinking I'm going to be happy with what John Campea says right now, no, you're not. Okay, I'm just giving you that heads up right now.
Oh, should I leave the room?
You might be mad at me by the time I'm done here, because what I'm going to say is going to piss off everybody, and I don't give a fuck, because I'm going to lay some truth on you. Let's start with what our scenario is here. Of course, the Golden Globes, which are useless as tits on a bull, as my dad used to say. The Golden Globes put out their nomination list, and the Best Director list came out, and it's all male directors this year. And we are looking at a hell of a lineup. It's Bong Joon-ho for Parasite, Sam Mendes for 1917, Todd Phillips for Joker, Martin Scorsese for The Irishman, and Quentin Tarantino for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I believe it is safe to say none of these additions are anything close to surprising. We have heard nothing but glowing things about 1917. I have not seen it yet myself, but I'm hearing at the moment that thing started showing to Academy members, all we've heard is this is a serious major awards contender. And Sam Mendes is a frontrunner. When Parasite came out, everybody knew that Joon-ho was going to be a frontrunner for Best Director thing. Martin Scorsese doing The Irishman, everybody's been predicting that's going to be a Best Director nominee. And a Best Picture major contender might be the frontrunner at this point. Hollywood loves movies about Hollywood. So while I am not the biggest fan in the world of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, we all knew Quentin Tarantino was going to get a nomination for this. This is no surprise. Todd Phillips' Joker has been the most talked about movie of the year, other than Endgame, but it's been the most talked about movie of the year. It won the Golden Lion at the Venice Film Festival, one of the most prestigious awards that can get given out. It won that. No surprise here that Todd Phillips. And two big absences here, I believe, are Taika Waititi, who I believe directed the best film of the year in Jojo Rabbit. He didn't get nominated. I thought Rian Johnson did one of the best. When you look at the work he did with his ensemble and bringing Knives Out to life, I thought he maybe deserved a spot. But you look at this list, it is an incredibly powerful list. Now, two things I want to say here. This is broken down into two separate discussions that are erroneously being looked at as if they're the same discussion, and they're not. There are two separate issues here, but they're being treated as if they're one, but they're two. And here are the two issues. On the one hand, we cannot deny that for decades, there has been an issue in Hollywood of a lack of representation for anybody, particularly in the director's chairs, for anybody that was not a straight white man. Me. The amount of data that proves that is irrefutable. And really, most people don't deny that at this point. You have to basically you're making yourself look like a flat earther if you try to deny that at this point. That's just data. That's just facts. There's no getting around that. There has been. We can debate how much of that still exists today, but historically, there's no denying there has been. And I will argue and fight and scream that we need more women. We need more different ethnicities. We need more representation in directors' chairs in our business. Because when you look at the history, even the most recent history, let's look at our favorite genre, comic book movies. In this new era of comic book movies, we had something along the lines of 35 plus major comic book movies in a row that were all directed by men. All of them. At some point, mathematical improbabilities suggest an agenda. And when you get one film that's directed by a guy, not a woman, whatever. 2, that's fine. 3, fine. 4, fine. 5, then 6, then 7, then 8, then 9, then 10. The larger that number becomes of those big movies in a row where you're having just male directors, 13, 14, 15 in a row, 17, 20, 23, every time that number goes up, the mathematical improbability of there being an agenda-less factor going on becomes more and more improbable. And mathematically speaking, the improbability becomes so high that you cannot deny that there is an agenda of some sorts or a pre-existing bias. And it becomes to the point where there is not an agenda of inclusion. Some people keep squawking their mouths, there's this agenda, this is inclusion. We don't need an agenda of inclusion. In Hollywood, we need to end the agenda of exclusion. There's not some brand new agenda of inclusion. It means we need to kill the agenda of exclusion that has been around for years and years and years and years. People need opportunity to direct, to write these films, and we need to stop the idea that we are excluding and shutting out anybody other than those that look like me. Although, if the world was filled with more people that look like me, it would be a very beautiful place. That aside, we do need a Hollywood system that has more people coming to the table. Now that I've pissed off half of you, now that I've got half of you sufficiently angry at me and treating Campea as an SJW, it's delicious. Here's the other part that's going to piss off everybody else. And this is why I said these are two separate issues that are being looked at like they're one, but they're really two. And that is awards. Academy Awards, Golden Globe Awards, Film Critics' Choice Awards, Bob the Gas Station Man in Toledo, Ohio Movie Awards, whatever you want to talk about. The awards are a separate issue. The awards are not about giving somebody a seat at the table. It should be about a body of professionals that look at a group of work, put on blinders, and say, regardless of who made it and where it was made, what is the best? It's a subjective opinion, but that's what the award shows are for. It's putting on the blinders to who made it, what color, race, nationality anybody is, and at the end of the day, what films do we deem in our own subjective opinions as a group of film professionals, what do we deem as being the most quality? And in that, there should be no discussion of exclusivity, of exclusion, or of inclusion. It should simply be about quality. Now, let me get onto something here about this controversy that's gone on. One of the director of Honey Boy threw around some pretty heavy words. And Alma Har'el, and I'm sure I'm mispronouncing her last name, Har'el, said the following. This was in Deadline. For the first time this year, we have seen an increase in hiring of female directors. Progress. Somewhere between 12 and 14% of the top 100 films this year will have been directed by women. Again, progress. She told Deadline. But this is where it gets interesting. She said the lack of nominated female directors reflects, now this is key, pay attention to this, reflects that the image of a female director, as held by the Hollywood Foreign Press Association, seems to still exclude women from being considered as artists worthy of critical acclaim or award recognition. Let me read that last part again, because we're going to dissect this. The lack of nominated female directors reflects that the image of a female director, as held by the Hollywood Foreign Press Association, seems to still exclude women from being considered as artists worthy of critical acclaim or awards recognition. All right. I'm going to tell you why I take major issue with this statement.
I do too, actually.
And I think everybody should. There is an inherent arrogance in this statement that says this: I, being Alma Har'el, who, by the way, I've heard nothing but glowing things about. I've heard she's a joy to work with. I heard she's clearly very talented. I've heard nothing in my life but positive things. So please understand, my discussion right now, we're focusing on this one issue. We're just talking about this issue. I'm not talking about the totality of her personhood. But this one statement reeks of an unparalleled godlike arrogance. Her statement basically says this: I was so much better than everybody who was nominated that the only possible explanation for me and my obvious superiority being excluded from that list of only 5, the only possible explanation is that the lack of nominated female directors reflects that the image of the female director as held by the Hollywood foreign press still seems to exclude women from being considered as artists worthy of critical acclaim or awards recognition. It does not take into consideration, even for one moment, no, these were just the best 5 this year. And you weren't. You know who else wasn't nominated? Rian Johnson wasn't nominated for Knives Out. Was that because that the attitudes held by the Hollywood Foreign Press Association seems to still exclude women from being considered as artists worthy of critical acclaim or award recognition? Or was it because they just didn't think his was the top 5? Taika Waititi, who I believe directed the best film of the year this year in Jojo Rabbit, was not nominated. Was Taika Waititi not nominated because the views held by the Hollywood Foreign Press Association seemed to exclude women from being considered as artists worthy of critical acclaim or award recognition?
Might have been just people from New Zealand, John.
It's true. It's true. Is that why Taika Waititi was not nominated? Or was Taika Waititi not nominated simply because this useless body, by the way, of the Hollywood Foreign Press Association, totally useless bunch of boobs. By the way, I know some people on the Hollywood Foreign Press Association that are friends of mine. I'm just pulling your strings a bit. Or did Taika Waititi not get nominated because that group of voting Academy members just felt that his was not one of the top 5? And they did not feel a need or an agenda to exclude one of what they felt were the best in order to make sure we had New Zealand representation in the award. No, clearly it was just because they just didn't feel, and I can agree or disagree, but they clearly just did not feel that Rian Johnson, Taika Waititi, Logan director who directed Ford v Ferrari. Why am I freezing?
James Mangold.
James Mangold, who directed, I believe, the 5th best movie of the year.
Wonderful movie.
And brilliantly directed. They just felt that their efforts, while wonderful and fantastic, did not constitute one of the top 5. This is a situation, Rob, to me, where we are confusing the issues of moving in a new, more positive direction to make sure that female directors, different ethnicities, people get more representation and opportunities to make these films that we enjoy so much, versus at the end of the year, then having, hopefully, a body of professionals that just vote in their own subjective opinions what they felt are the best. Nothing but quality should be the defining factor. And we may agree or disagree with the nominees that come out. We may agree or disagree with what the results ultimately end up being. But to say something so pompously arrogant that if you didn't nominate me and I'm so clearly better than everybody, the only possible explanation is that because you have a pre-existing bias that you don't want to see a woman being nominated. I find that to be disingenuous. And I think she is smart enough to know that that's not true. So that's why I said at the beginning of this, folks, that I'm going to say something that pisses off everybody. Have I sufficiently, or are you all pissed off now at me? Because if not, I can keep going. I can't be done here until I've pissed you all off. But anyway, there you go. It is a different thing. Rob, these organizations shouldn't look at these movies as anything. This is not an opportunity. It's not an opportunity to not, no, just nominate who are the best and then let Hollywood work. And by the way, by the way, to what Har'el was saying, to her point, we're coming up in 2020, and we are starting to see like 4 and 5 of the most major blockbusters coming up, 4 of them superhero films in 2020, are all being directed by women. 5 of the biggest titles, this is from Variety, 5 of the biggest titles set for release next year in 2020, including all 4 major superhero movies, will be directed by women next year. Birds of Prey by Kathy Yan, Mulan by Nikki Caro, I'm so excited for that film, Black Widow by Kate Shortland, and on May for Wonder Woman by Patty Jenkins, and Eternals by Chloe Zhao. We are seeing these things changing. And these things need to change. We need to see more representation. We need to see more opportunity. These are things that have been long overdue in Hollywood. But when it comes to awards time, I don't care about any of that. I don't want to have to put an asterisk beside somebody's name. They won because they're a woman. I think that undermines the efforts that people are trying to make to get these changes happening. So anyway, Rob, I've gone on about this at length. Your thoughts on the nominee list, your thoughts on the controversy, how do you feel about it?
Well, I think her comments, quite frankly, are disappointing because we live in a world now where there is more inclusion than there has ever been before. Now, does that mean that there can't be more? No, it means there should be more. I, on my own show, completely advocate the fact that I love hearing the stories of other people. The more people that we have making films, whether it's women, whether it's people of color, whether it's people of multi-genders, trans people, LGBTQ, the more people that are making movies and telling stories, the better off the audiences are, because we're going to be hearing unique stories that we haven't heard before, told in unique and different ways. She makes her opinion, she starts out and says, there are more directors now than there have ever been. 12 to 14% more women directors, as that Variety article says, there's more women directing superhero movies. The thing is, John, there's not exactly the same amount of men and women who are trying to make movies. Women are moving into this space, and they have been, and it's great to see. But when it comes to the 5 people that were nominated, what you're doing by saying things like this is, are you saying then that the experience, I mean, these are the gentlemen that have been nominated for Best Director. They've been working, in the case of Martin Scorsese, over half a century in movie making. Quentin Tarantino started making films. He's been making movies for over a quarter century. Bong Joon-ho is one of the masters, and he's a Korean, and he's been making films for decades. Are you then going to say that those people, forget their gender, but are you going to take away all the hard work and effort that they've put into their careers and the fact that they've been slogging against the Hollywood system or with the Hollywood system? I mean, Martin Scorsese has not had an anointed life. His career, especially his early career, was up and down and up and down. I mean, remember, he was gone in the 80s. He came back and he made Color of Money with Tom Cruise and came back. I mean, I hate the fact that you can't help other people rise up by putting other people down. You can't trade one oppression for another. And the thing is, anybody, John, can make a movie. You can pick up a camera. You wanted to make a movie. You wanted to know what it was like, and you went out and did it. It's not like you went to film school and spent your entire life waiting to make movies. You didn't start shooting Super 8 movies with your Star Wars figures when you were 8, and you went out and did it. No one is stopping anybody from picking up cameras and joining the elite club of directors. But you know what? It's really, 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 really hard. Just like it's really hard to become an NBA star, it's really hard to become an Olympic gold medalist. And when we're talking about people that are working at the top of their fields, I just don't like the fact that, you're going to make somebody else's success into someone else's oppression. It's not fair. And it's not warranted. And when you start out and say, look at all the inroads that are being made, and you actually watch people being included, and there's evidence to support that, and there's hundreds of millions of dollars that female directors are now in charge of, you can't say, and look at how rapidly this has changed. We're not talking decades. This is happening within years, 1 year to the next. We're seeing all kinds of inclusion. And I feel that when these things are actually happening, to then go and point and say, look what's not happening. We're being oppressed over here. Well, the numbers just don't bear that out. And it isn't fair.
Here's the interesting thing, too. With the progress we're starting to see, and again, we need this progress. We need more of it, and it needs to continue happening. As we see this percentage of 12 to 14% growing over the years, like next year, again, like 5 of the biggest films next year are all going to be directed by women. As we continue to see that happening and more opportunity being given, so it's not 86% male all the time, but as we see those numbers start to balance out, you're going to see that start to reflect in awards season.
Yes.
That's going to start happening because as more women get more opportunities to direct these films, that means more women get the opportunity to really shine and highlight their work and be one of the best of that year. And listen, you're looking at like Lulu Wang, who directed the Farewell this year. I love that movie. I think you could have made an argument for her to maybe get one of these nominated spots, but not so overwhelmingly convincing that it's just clear that she should have been nominated instead of, I don't know, Martin Scorsese. I just don't think that argument exists. But as we get more women getting these opportunities moving forward, you're going to see that. To me, it's a little bit of a chicken before the egg thing.
Yes.
So, I don't know. Question here. Listen, I know I've just pissed off all of you. I've probably now lost enough subscribers. I'm going to have another 200,000 subscriber celebration at some point.
But I think, we can't stress enough that seeing inclusion happen and seeing more people working, that doesn't give anybody the right to then go denigrate the people that have already spent years or decades or most of their lives in a business and they are deserving of their awards. Why try and diminish their accomplishments? Why not help people accomplish new things, but don't take away from the accomplishments of others? That's not right.
Yeah, and look, and I would even be more sympathetic to that position, Rob, if it was a clear-cut case, as Har'el seems to suggest, that she was so much better than everybody else, it's obvious that if you don't nominate her, then the only possible explanation is an existing sexist bias. If you were able to make that argument, okay, but that's not the case here today.
It's also, she was picked to direct the story of a straight white male and his life. You know, it's not like they went, only a straight white male can tell the story of Honey Boy and my plight, Shia LaBeouf's plight in Hollywood. They picked her. That's an amazing, right then and there. I mean, what's your argument? Why are you angry? Look what you got tapped to direct.
So anyway, guys, that's just our thoughts on this. Question is, how do you guys feel about this controversy? Jump down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts.